Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this latest edition of Tales from Outer Space. And as always, I hope that you enjoy. At the Bottom of this Mine, written by Ruby Spicer. The Zyorians were a small race, half the average size of a human man, around 90 centimeters high. They were plenty capable of digging the mines themselves with equipment, but this mine was rather shallow by Zyorian mining standards, and they weren't permitted the budget for it. Privately, the foreman thought that it was because the government wanted to extract as much profit possible from the palladium and platinum. They had a history of cutting corners. So in came the humans with digging machines of their own, but also pickaxes and shovels and good old-fashioned muscle. And once the workers themselves got the tracks set up, and the mining could begin in earnest, the Zyorian officials were eager to hire a large group of humans to get the work done as quickly as possible. Of course, because there were already advance orders for what metals were coming out. None was so memorable to the foreman as the giant, a man who was at least a head over the rest of the humans, who was not boisterous and talkative as the rest of his kind, who weren't shy about getting to know the Zyorians. How often did one meet another race with a second set of eyes? His name was long and complicated, so the foreman marked him down simply as John. If he disliked that, he never said so. He responded to it, so everyone came to think it was his name. Most of the time, he'd take his breaks alone, just watching the sunset or looking at the stars, or looking at some wrinkled picture in his pocket. His mother, he said, when they asked who it was, very sick, but he had no more on her. The few times he did speak up on his own about things, it was always about the mine or the job. Grounds soupy, water's running nearby, big shaft there, let them step over it, let me carry that for you. No amount of kindness could erase the ineptitude, or what some called the outright maliciousness of the Zyorian government, though. Miners quit, but there would always seem to be plenty of Zyorians to replace them, desperate for better wage than mining work paid, though, as time passed, less and less humans came back. Cracked timbers, frayed ropes, bad falls, one incident after another kept happening, and yet the only fixes seemed to be temporary. Humans, John was prompted to say once, didn't tend to put up with such workplace conditions. We went through enough of that ourselves. They asked why he put up with it, but all he said was, somebody gotta do it. I'm telling you, we're really onto something here. One of the smaller Zyorian workers raised a chunk of platinum. They're going to make a fortune on it, and you aren't getting any. It was break time, and the Zyorians were sitting around with one of their rations, chatting about the latest find. Hell with that, said the first worker. I'll hide a few chunks on me. They won't miss a little bit of it. Put it in your work boots, though. They search pockets. They'd hit a new vein in deep mine, when previously they thought the current one was tapped out. That would mean more equipment and a larger budget, and hopefully less injuries. John hadn't said anything yet. He was seated off to one side, looking up at the rough corridors towards the surface. I'll have to break this apart then. We can't all beat John with his giant boots. Plenty of room in those to store stuff away. He could practically shove enough to buy his own ship in those enormous things. John stayed silent. His head was cocked to one side. It didn't appear to hear the laughter echoing around him. Get up! One of the others turned his second set of eyes to John's direction. You need to get up now! John bellowed this time, and the others shrunk back. While there had been one or two times he'd shouted, it was never like this. He stood up, but no sooner had he done so was there a loud crack. The timber, not even 20 feet away, completely buckled. Everyone leapt to their feet then. But then the fastest one there couldn't make it past before one V-shaped section of wood bent nearly to the floor. I knew this was going to happen. I knew it, shrieked one of the others. The damn government can't spare one stinking silver clank for safety, but I bet their ships have platinum plating. Rage came first, then sorrow. Weeping soon followed. with wails about children or spouses or sweethearts. Everyone was panicked. Everyone feared for their lives. Everyone except John, the foreman, who had been praying to the God he swore to his mother he did not believe in, begging forgiveness for letting things get so far, found himself nudged by the giant. "Take this for me." He looked up as best he could into those dark eyes of John's and found them glassy, but not sad. And he realized what the giant was trying to hand him was the picture he'd always carried around, the one of his mother. "Tell her I'm sorry." "For what, John? What are you?" John strode past the huddling group, right up to the broken timber, bent over. "You're going to kill us even faster if you touch that thing," one of the Zyorians in the back shouted. "Rather dead flat, fast, than suffocate," someone else hiccuped. While they knew the strength of humans was greater than their own due to their size and muscle mass, it was one thing to see them hauling and quite another to see them lifting. The Zyorians watched in a strange, fascinated horror as a single man lifted the timber up and onto his shoulders. John's meteor hands moved under the wood, though. He planted his feet and with a groan gave a huge shove and brought the timber back up. It shifted and threatened to fall again, but he leaned slightly and let the weight fall on his shoulders. "Go!" John shouted. He would not need to shout again. The Zyorians scrambled out, leaving behind their tools and equipment, even the scraps of platinum that they had scattered around. They ran such as they had never needed to run before, shouting all the time about the cracked timber and the fading supports. Had they had the time to look, they would have seen similar failures happening all around them. But at last, they were all out, waving arms and shouting about danger below. "I told them that we needed more supports," the foreman shouted, tossing his helmet to the ground. "We're going back down. We'll just have to use the supports that we were going to use for the next tent." There was a rumble then, one that seemed to stretch up and twist their insides. The 4 humans still on staff on top went for the minecart and were about to enter when there was another rumble. A sickening shower of powdered stone and metal issued out of the mine entrance. There was one human in the group of 4 wearing a hat that he did something the foreman had never seen before. He took his hat off and held it over the left side of his chest. The thin, sickly-looking woman had come. She couldn't have weighed more than 90 human pounds and looked as though she could barely get to her feet. But she was there, and she was going to take her rights as a mother of sole victim to speak before the court. They did not speak the Terran language she did, but the translators were on standby to record and send text to the judge what was being said. Here, the court had slapped a profanity warning on the transcript. "My son is dead at the bottom of a mine because you couldn't see farther than your goddamn wallets. Because you had what bills where your fecking hearts should be." She was already wheezing, but waved off the concerns of not only the nurse at her side, but also the judge, and kept on going. "I'm going to tie you up in so much goddamn red tape that your grandchildren are going to be scared of a word lawyer. I am going to get the MSHA so far up your ass you'll be barfing warning stickers for." She started coughing at this point, and the nurse at her side finally convinced her to sit back down. But she kept her word. In the end, they were all able to negotiate with her lawyer. The expensive care John had been working to pay for her illness, they would now fully cover, and the entire mining site was turned over to the Terran company that had an excellent reputation with the M. Shah, and came offering memberships to something called a union. But most noticeably, and the thing that would last much longer than the mining operation itself, was a white stone stand that was placed just outside the new entrance to the mine, with a single sentence written on it in both English and Zyorian. "At the bottom of this mine lies a man who made his mother cry, so that ours did not." End of story. I just quickly want to thank the Tier 5 patrons and channel members: Alithia Barkey, Cam Maxwell, Casper Arnholtz, Albarden Guster, Arcadian, Lord Azrakal, and Joachim Backer.